be reading from my newest middle grade novel, which just came out about 2 weeks ago on the 11th. And I'm going to start in chapter 8 here. And what has basically just happened in the story is one of the most evil sorcerers of all time has just been resurrected from the dead. And we are going to meet the young sorceress who resurrected him. Chapter 8, Doors Meant to be Opened. The dark sorceress Cleoline was 18 years old, very good at magic, and very, very bored. 3 things most people would agree are a dangerous combination. Cleoline could happily brag that she'd been expelled from Madame Patrizia's boarding academy for magical girls of quality at the age of 13, only to be promptly accepted into the Order of Archivists instead. She hadn't known much about the archivists when she joined, mostly that they were sorcerers and also librarians. It turned out she'd had it all backward, and they were, in fact, mostly librarians with a little bit of sorcery thrown in. They hadn't taken kindly to her pyrotechnic experiments in their sacred forest. They cut the trees down for their fancy paper anyway, so she didn't see what the big deal was. Or her necromantic experiments with corpses from the Order's graveyard. Again, perfectly good bodies just sitting there. Or, as the head librarian put it, her general inclination toward practicing dark magic as opposed to filing it away alphabetically in the darkest corner she could find. Why did it have to be alphabetical if no one was ever going to see it? And so, Cleoline could unhappily say that she'd been chucked out of the Order of Archivists at the tender age of 16, at which point she chose to rent a flat in an aging magician's tower basement and do her best to ignore the rest of the civilized world. She could have trudged home to her parents, but they were sheep farmers, which was not only extremely boring, but Cleoline had the unjust misfortune of being born with a wool allergy. She'd thrown herself into her studies on her own, continuing her experiments as best she could. It helped that her landlord, Waldo the Wise, was more than a little blind and deaf at his age, and so was less likely to notice when one of his chickens or grandchildren occasionally went missing to further the pursuit of magical discovery. The hidden portal she'd discovered and widened just a little on her way out of the Order that led straight to their top secret collections probably helped too. It was probably meant to be like an emergency exit in case the archives ever came in under attack, but in Cleo's opinion, why make a door if you didn't want anyone to use it? And yet, it had to be said, despite access to most of the world's magical knowledge, most of her experiments went nowhere. She was tired of burning off chunks of her long black hair while playing with fire. She had to be careful about things with fumes down there in the basement because she was inquisitive, not suicidal. Smuggling corpses down all those flights of stairs was exhausting, and most of the time, her revenants didn't do much more than twitch pathetically before launching themselves straight at her head, at which point she was forced to terminate the spell or risk her brains becoming zombie chow. Waldo the Wise's tower lacked a proper dungeon in which to lock up one's victims, which Cleoline felt was a major design flaw. All her past failures considered, it came as a bit of a shock when the walking, talking corpse of Amaryl Veneer, the coolest, evilest sorcerer knight of all time, burst through her doorway, sending splinters and grave dirt flying every which way and looking very much alive. Cleoline, Waldo's tremulous voice called from up the stairs. There's a young man here to see you. You, said Amaryl, pointing one jagged, broken fingernail at her. His gaunt face was dirt-streaked, his gray eyes haunted-looking and rimmed with dark circles, his hair hanging in lank, greasy chunks. Cleoline didn't think she'd ever seen anyone more handsome. "You're the one who raised me," Amaral said, his voice deep and hoarse. 300 years underground made one a little parched, Cleoline imagined. "Keep it casual, Cleo," she reminded herself, trying to strike as nonchalant a pose as possible on her couch without getting stabbed by one of the random chunks of broken door. "Guilty," she said with a little shrug. Amaral stared straight at her, breathing heavily. "Then maybe it is you who can tell me," he said, his gray eyes locking on to her violet ones, freezing her to the spot with their intensity. She understood why hundreds of knights had followed him all those years ago. "Anything," Cleo breathed. Amaral's face twisted in pain, his eyes struggling to shed tears that Cleoline suspected he could no longer make, not after she had ripped him from the jaws of death. "Why do I feel so empty?" That's it. I do have a giveaway going as well. I am giving away one hardcover copy of the Demon Sword Asperities, along with a reader's choice of a hardcover or softcover copy of any of my books of your choosing. And there are 3 other ones, so have at it. Thanks.